The shapeshifting archetype has been a dying breed for a while, evidenced by the total absence of a new one following the release of Gnar, and to a lesser extent Kled. The ones who still remain can still be fairly hit or miss depending on the current meta, with voluntary transformations like the ones you find on Rek'Sai, Nidalee, and Jace occasionally running into blips in popularity, especially in higher divisions. Considering the aforementioned three have the same weakness of falling off late game to some extent, in conjunction with a relatively high skill ceiling, they're presented as high-risk, high-reward champions, known for exerting tons of pressure in the early to mid-game that can potentially snowball out of control, or likewise they can be shut down and made irrelevant, really until the end of the game. Arguably the most popular among traditional shapeshifters back in the 2010s was Elise, a catcher-assassin hybrid with a more tactical set of tools than that of her jungle counterpart Nidalee. Several times throughout history, Elise recorded play rate highs of almost 20%, routinely terrorizing solo queue to the point where many thought her the strongest jungler in the game for multiple stretches of time. When looking at how popular she used to be, one has to wonder what happened to her to be barely seen nowadays. For today's episode of Waitngo Plays, we'll be discussing the Spider Queen's fall from grace. Because it's been a while since my shapeshifting video, a refresher is in order. Shapeshifters are a small group of champions known for having the ability to alternate between two distinct set of basic abilities, compromising a traditional ultimate to do so. For Jace, Nidalee, and Elise, their two attack styles comprise a melee form and a ranged form, usually being sequenced one after another, ranged to set up the kill and melee to take it, although variations do apply. Having access to 6 abilities right out the gate affords immeasurably higher base power than other champions. However, this is of course kept in check by set abilities not contributing nearly as much on paper as counterparts and the previously stated loss of a standard ultimate, known to be the crux of a champion's moveset. In essence, shapeshifters receive a small yet non-negligible advantage in the early to mid-game, but are obligated to end the game before it reaches around 25 minutes, or achieve a game state where it's pragmatically unfeasible for the enemy team to mount a comeback, such as a 10k plus gold lead with Dragon Soul, Baron, triple inhibs, and Elder Dragon type scenario. Such is the case for most early game champions, and Elise is no exception. In fact, she might be the most prone to a late game shutdown given her surprisingly limited options. The need for a resulting game state has only become more stringent over time, bordering on impractically so. A huge factor contributing to her dominance prior to the start of the new decade is that she used to have what many other champions didn't. In other words, power and feature creep have caught up to her. When Elise came out, she sported a number of tools that skewed the early game in her favor to extents no other could. Beginning with her ganking ability, she had the perfect combination of setup and kill power, which back in the day was in short supply. A standard combo with Elise entails Cocoon into Neurotoxin, then Volatile Spiderling, before swapping to her spider form to finish them off with Venomous Bite, or if they survive, to continue attacking with the increased attack speed on Skittering Frenzy, speeding up both hers and her Spiderling's attacks. Alongside a straightforward yet powerful single target burst combo was one of the most flexible battle mobility tools in the game, Repel. For up to 2 seconds, Elise will render herself essentially untargetable and reveal the entire area, during which, at any point, she can select a targetable enemy entity and land on top of them, essentially granting her a 700 range untargetable blink. The range of use cases with the Spider E alone are too numerous to count. She can use it to gap close on enemies who attempt to run away, she can use it to drop aggro after a tower dive, she can use it as a makeshift Zanya's hourglass to buy time for any reason, she can use it to escape if caught in a bad position such as jumping over to a jungle camp. This single ability alone can do so much despite appearing to do very little on paper. Elise had the full package. Most other junglers were lacking in something when it came to the early game. Amumu and Jarvan had spectacular gank pressure, but they were much less capable in single combat. As a reminder, we're talking like 8 to 10 years ago. Other high kill power junglers with good ganks usually suffered from getting battered by the more hostile jungle environment. Rengar, Kha'Zix, and Kindred are scary in the early game, but with how much damage they took during their first clear, you didn't have to worry about them too much. Elise faced no difficulty on either front. She was one of the most dangerous junglers to take on by herself given her entire kit excelled at single target execution. Meanwhile, thanks to her Spiderlings, face tanking hits from jungle camps and her on-end lifesteal, she had a slightly healthier clear than most others, allowing her to go on the offensive immediately and putting that deadly combo to use. The modern day jungle is significantly more lenient when it comes to the early clear. With the loss of damage and health on jungle camps, the improvements to Smite, and most importantly the contemporary jungle items giving you virtually limitless mana even without the blue buff, even the squishiest and least clear effective junglers can reliably navigate their first clear without ever dropping below half HP, allowing for the most diverse cast of champions we've ever seen to be played in that role, with many of the once vulnerable targets receiving crucial quality of life changes to aid them in a more impactful early game. Essentially, Elise's core strength, weathering the initial clear with minimal damage and then having some of the highest early game battle pressure, has become less distinguished over time. Now you have tons of junglers who can start terrorizing the map by 3 minutes, having comparable one-shotting capability as her. Rengar, Kiana, Kha'Zix, Echo, Rek'Sai, Shaco, Talon, Diana, even if Elise can still edge out over them in kill power, it's not by much to offset how much stronger those champions get over time compared to her. The way she was able to exceed them prior was 1. Most of them not being able to jungle until recently like Talon, Kiana, and Diana, and 2. Them taking a lot longer to get the ball rolling, which bought Elise more time to build her lead. Another key strength to her was how easily Elise could tower dive thanks to Repel. In my opinion, tower diving has never been easier. It doesn't matter who you play, a solid wave crash with the enemy laner decently injured can result in an easy tower dive from just about any champion. Again, doesn't matter who. I'm not sure if I'm misremembering or if it was a culmination of small factors like increased base stats over the years and whatnot, but I seem to recall tower dives being much more hazardous to pull off during seasons 5, 6, and 7. It could also be because one-shotting even in the early game is a lot more abundant nowadays. Bot lane especially. I don't know about you, but I've never seen a game where by level 2, someone is in either dead or all 8 sums are burned. Like deadass, the odds of you seeing a level 2 bot lane with all sums available are infinitesimal. I digress though, point being the idea of a strong early game isn't all that rare anymore. Not only is the game faster paced, giving Elise less time to acquire a lead, but other junglers start out in a much less vulnerable position, giving them the opportunity to pose an equal threat as Elise can, except with more upside. Really, the only thing making her stand out is how monstrously broken Repel is on a conceptual level. That ability makes or breaks Elise, the same way Fizz would be nothing without Playful Trickster. But as consequence, and again when combining the fact that she's a shapeshifter, her abilities are just not all that great otherwise. Neurotoxin's among the least impactful damaging abilities in the game. 9 times out of 10 it just looks like another basic attack. While Volatile Spiderling has excellent base damage and AP ratio, it's counterbalanced by how easy it is to avoid by simply walking away. Though Venomous Bite is stronger relative to Neurotoxin, it's a damaging ability in the most normal sense of the word. Skittering Frenzy is also a short-lived attack speed buff. This leaves her with just Cocoon and Repel for meaningful impact, and in fairness, those abilities are certainly impactful. While Cocoon does no damage, it's noticeably faster in projectile speed than other pick tools like Morgana and Luxq. However, Elise's Cocoon's a stun that, as of last year, could reach a max duration of 2.4 seconds, the longest unconditional stun in the entire game. If you get caught by this towards the mid to late game, it's practically a death sentence, but if her only real shining virtue is being a stun bot, at that point you might as well pick someone more dedicated for that role. The second main issue affecting Lisa's popularity is that champions have evolved to do a lot more than she can, even those who fit a similar niche as her. For example, Rengar was once exclusively just an assassin who one-shotted someone and called it a day. Nowadays, you might run into a Rengar who can do just that, but he can also function more like a diver champ with a bruiser item or two, capitalizing on Battle Roar to keep himself in the fight. Kha'Zix is still an assassin, but evolved Spike Racks gives him an excellent scouting, poke, and control tool. Nidalee falls off arguably harder than Elise, but when push comes to shove, she can still heal her teammates and play artillery with her long-range Qs. Then of course, you have all the modern assassin divers like Kiana who can wipe out entire teams with a well-placed ultimate, Bluecane who can assassinate champions without even needing a stun, not to mention escaping with the same exact ability he used to engage with, Evelyn's new kit providing her a delayed, albeit guaranteed way to lock down her target then get out, with Allure and Last Caress having similar applications to Cocoon and Repel. Finally, the explosive rise of battle-heavy junglers like Hecarim, Briar, Viego, and Bel'Veth who love to scrap as early as possible. Each of them has something more they can contribute to the team while at the same time having passable marks and fields to at least keep up with Elise's pace. Or rather, they actually flat out beat her to the punch. If I could single out one weakness with Elise's early game, it would be her lackluster clearing. Previously, she got away with it because even the best clearing junglers were not that much better than her, and those who were likely took more damage than she did and had to recall, giving her a head start in ganks and getting stuff done. However, clearing has become so optimized, so efficient, and so forgiving that most junglers can full clear within 2.5 minutes, maybe less. Back in the day, the Raptor camp used to be the worst one to go for because you took so much damage. Nowadays, people start with Raptors at level 1 with no leash. Elise is still by and large more dangerous in the early game than other junglers, but they can clear faster than her, allowing them to start doing more stuff before she does, and if she falls behind, that only exacerbates faster and faster. Sure, you can secure fast ganks top, mid, and bot lane, but the enemy jungler is at 80 CS tier 30, resulting in a break even. It's become too easy for Elise to get outscaled even if she does everything right, because while other early game oriented champions have something that can still work for late game plays, Elise has nothing. Hecarim falls off late game, but he's still a diver. The enemy backline must respect his engage and AoE damage even if it's 40 minutes in. Lee Sin can still kick the Cho'Gath right into your Kog'Maw and one-shot him with his own teammate. Once more, Nidalee Spears can do 1500 damage towards the late game, so even though she falls off as hard as Elise does, barely anyone's afraid of Elise W, but they most certainly are scared of Nidalee Q. On that note, the aforementioned idea of it being too easy for Elise to get outscaled brings me to my final thought for why people stopped playing her. League has a lot more moving parts to it now. Doubtless within the past few years you've heard mention of the game being too snowbally, where one bad fight can begin a snowball that ends the game within 15 minutes. In retrospect, League isn't more snowbally than ever, rather it snowballs faster. 10 years ago, snowballing was still present. However, while there weren't that many ways a team could mount a comeback, there also weren't that many ways a team could accelerate their advantage or force a checkmate game state like we can now. In other words, there were less win conditions to play off of, giving the losing team less ways to artificially bridge the power disparity, but then again, giving the winning team less ways to acquire further advantage if the losing team resorted to turtling and playing safe. For example, present-day League of Legends has a soft cap on game timer, objectives. Before, we never had Rift Herald, Dragon Soul, Elder Dragon, Void Grubs, or things like that. Now, it's exceedingly difficult to hunker down and play for 40 minutes because you might not even get to that point. If you let the enemy team secure 6 Void Grubs, Rift Herald, 4 Dragons tier 0, subsequently Dragon Soul, Baron, and Elder Dragon, no matter how strong your team is in the late game, the winning team has too much an outside gold advantage that you'll slowly bleed out eventually, forcing you to take risks to make a comeback. At the same time, because of how impactful these objectives are, that can wildly swing the game around too, hurting Elise's performance in the process. With how strictly early game focused she is, even a single bad fight in the mid game, if it results in losing Herald, losing your 4th Dragon, or worse yet, giving the enemy team an inhibitor or Baron, you may have dug your own grave right then and there. While it's become easier for the winning team to trample all over the losing team in record time, it's also become easier for the losing team to make gold reversals in the thousands within a matter of minutes. Shutdowns used to cap out at 500 gold instead of the 1000 we have now. Objective bounties add more gold for the team. Shutdown experience is also a thing too, so if Elise is on a killing spree and gets caught out, she might give whoever killed her a fast track to a level advantage. Counterintuitively, the increased volatility is a net negative for Elise, given she has no fallback whereas the majority of other junglers do. The more stable the playing field is, the better for her since good play leads to appropriate results. Likewise, they can easily pursue an alternate win condition, allowing them to still keep up with Elise's tempo without directly having to contest her in the field that she excels in. Since a long time ago, dragons were not quite as impactful, nor were there Void Grubs and Rift Herald, junglers didn't have much to do other than gank if they wanted to achieve something in the early game. But when you're facing down Elise, one of the best ganking and skirmishing junglers in the game, it made sense why she was popular. Junglers had only one job, and she was the best at it. Now, junglers can go for entirely non-confrontational win conditions. While Elise is busy ganking lanes, the enemy jungler could be setting up for a late game push by taking 6 grubs, Rift Heralds being up 3 dragons to 0, and if their team can hold on long enough, Elise basically did everything she could and still lost. So, what can be done to address this? Does she need a visual gameplay update? Not necessarily. Of all the voluntary shapeshifters, Elise definitely is the most one-dimensional in my opinion, which isn't a bad thing on its own, but a mid-scope could possibly do wonders for her. I do find her to be a bit polarizing of a champion. Similarly to super ultimate champs like Shen, Malphite, and Kennen, where their ultimates are too good, their basic abilities kinda suck, Elise's Cocoon and Repel are such fantastic abilities that to keep her in check, Neurotoxin, Volatile Spiderling, Venomous Bite, and Skittering Frenzy feel pretty lackluster in comparison. One avenue that could help her a bit would be to perhaps offer her some kind of skill-based late-game scaling mechanic. I'm just spitballing here, but given that she summons tiny spiders, give her something akin to Naafiri where Venomous Bite increases with the number of spiderlings the same way Naafiri's W does more damage with the number of wolves. Alternatively, they can add some way to allow her to play more like a bruiser, giving her more staying power in a fight. Right now, she's kind of a one-and-doneer after performing her combo, whereas Nidalee can at least keep fighting and moving around between the two forms during a team fight. Some more uptime would help ensure she can contribute a bit more in the late game. Last idea would maybe be to give her more spider stuff. Like you'd think the Spider Queen would be able to cast a giant spider web on the field to slow everyone down or something. What do you guys think though? Do you believe Elise needs a full rework or do you think she just needs a touch-up? I'm down to hear your thoughts in the comments. That's it for today though, so if you enjoyed the video, it would be great if you gave it a like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter @Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other Why No One Plays episodes if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.